So, the other day I was playing Path of Exile 2, and while I was killing an extremely easy boss, I remembered a comment on the video about turning plants into characters. It said that it would be cool to do the same with crops or trees, and that's when the light bulb went on. The tree idea wasn't bad, but using crops seemed way more interesting to me. But as usual, I wanted to put my own twist on it. I wanted to keep the essence of the idea, turning crops into characters, but I didn't feel like doing exactly that, since it would be too similar to what I did with the plants video. So, I kept thinking and thinking, until it hit me. Why not turn crops into bosses for a game? Better yet, why not fully design their stats and abilities? But which game could I choose for this? Which one would keep me interested enough to make a video about it? Then an idea struck into my mind, like a torch being thrown by Aragorn straight into a Nazgul face. What better game to do this than Dungeons and Dragons? Originally created in 1974 by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. It's the ultimate medieval fantasy role-playing game, where your imagination is the only limit, strategy is key, and the dice determine your fate. The game where it's harder to play consistently with your group than to defeat an ancient red dragon with a level 5 party. Thanks to this game, we have so many good RPGs that heavily rely on its system. So it felt fitting to create monster stat blocks inspired by crops, as if they were pulled straight from the 5th edition monster manual. And just like that, this idea fueled my curiosity and creativity enough to make me close Path of Exile 2 and start working. But first, I need to choose which crops to use as references. So my friend and I picked a few: wheat, beetroot, corn, potato, sugarcane, cauliflower, broccoli, pumpkin, sweet potato, durian, and eggplant. Obviously, I wasn't going to make all of them, so we had to pick 3 and discard the rest. But it wouldn't be fun if I just choose them myself, so I decided to use an online roulette to pick them randomly. While setting up the roulette, my friend and I were joking about how unlucky it would be if we got the potato or the sweet potato, since they were pretty simple and similar. We had mostly included them as filler. The same went for the durian, which my friend had suggested as a filler option. Well, as always, my luck is nowhere to be found. Luck is chasing me, but I'm faster. Of course, the 3 crops we joke about being the worst possible pick ended up being the exact ones I got. After laughing our heads off, my friend suggested I spin the roulette again. But you already know, I don't back off. The durian wasn't a bad option, but having both the potato and the sweet potato was awful since they were too similar. So, with everything decided, I got to work. The first one up was the potato. For some reason, it didn't take me long at all to come up with an idea. I immediately pictured a monster that was literally a giant potato, but alive, with roots acting as tentacles, which it used to move and attack. With that simple concept, I started writing. In short, this creature is born from the battlefields where farmlands has been drenched in blood. It absorbs that blood, feeding off the tormented souls, and as a result, it develops into something dark and twisted. Once that was clear, everything else became easier. Now I just have to come up with an interesting silhouette for the creature. I started with some rough sketches on a paper to quickly explore ideas. And then the process was pretty straightforward. Move to digital, look up real-life references to understand how the elements should look, make a refined and more detailed sketch, paint in grayscale for values, apply color, and finish with a final paint over where necessary. Honestly, there's no big mystery to this process. It's all about patience, experience, and how solid your idea is. And I have to say, I really like this one. A vampire-like bloodthirsty potato sounded like a fun concept to draw. Oh, right, I haven't talked about its abilities yet. Before I do, let me quickly go over its stats. For starters, it's pretty strong and has high constitution, which gives it a good amount of health, but it's extremely dumb. Its weaknesses is bludgeoning damage, but it resists cold and poison, and it's completely immune to necrotic damage. Naturally, it can be blinded, it doesn't have eyes. It also can be deafened or exhausted. It can sense creatures up to 60 feet away, but beyond that, it's completely blind. This enemy is level 5, which isn't bad in D&D, considering the player level cap is 20 and many campaigns don't even reach those higher levels. Now let's quickly talk about its abilities. Its only passive ability is that it heals 2 HP for every hit it lands. Its active abilities include a basic attack, a whip-like lash with its roots, which it can use twice per turn. It can also use a turn to ensnare someone with its roots, dealing damage. If it has someone already trapped, in a following turn, it can then pierce its roots into their veins and drain their life. Hence the vampire-like abilities. With everything finished, I decided on a name for this boss, Grorath. I also took some time to create a paper texture background for the stat sheet, and this is how it turned out. Personally, I'm really happy with the design, and it's my friend's favorite. I love how it has weapons embedded in its body, reinforcing the idea that it came from the battlefield. I also like how its leaves and the stem look withered, which combined with its roots give it a grim and eerie appearance. Exactly what I was aiming for. Next up was the sweet potato, and as you can imagine, the process was pretty much the same. Writing the concept, sketching rough ideas on a paper, refining the design in digital, painting in grayscale, adding color, and doing a final paint over where necessary. This one took me longer to figure out, but I knew I had to make it very different from the potato, since the crops themselves are so similar. I had to create a drastically different creature to make them interesting. After a lot of brainstorming, I finally got it. The concept I wrote down was essentially this. The creature would be a golem made of sweet potatoes, created by a mage who went insane believing they were the perfect material for such a construct. He became so obsessed that he was expelled from his academy and ended up isolating himself in a cabin deep in the woods. There he conducted countless experiments, some successful, some not, but at the end his madness drove him to use his own soul to bring life to a golem made of his modified sweet potatoes. It's an utterly ridiculous backstory, which I found pretty amusing. a strong contrast to the grim horror of the potato. Stat-wise, it's quite strong and has high constitution, meaning lots of HP, but has low defense. Its intelligence is non-existent, and it's not particularly agile. It's resistant to cold damage, immune to poison and psychic damage, and cannot be charmed, exhausted, frightened, or poisoned. It also has dark vision and can only understand the language of its creator. It's a level 6 enemy, and you might be wondering, but its stats are the same or even worse than the potatoes. Why is it a higher level? And my answer is simple. Its passive abilities. These passive abilities are taken directly from the golem in the monster manual, because I really like them. The first of the 4 is called Berserk. Basically, if the golem drops below 40 HP, it goes into a frenzy and will try to destroy any creature nearby. Another passive makes it immune to spells that alter its form. Also, instead of taking damage from lightning, it actually gets healed. Though looking at it now, I probably should have changed the damage type because having this happen with lightning doesn't make much sense. The last passives are that it has advantages on saving throws against magic and its attacks count as magical. Its abilities are simple but effective. One is a heavy strike that can be used twice per turn, while the other is an even stronger blow that, if you are unlucky, can deal extra damage and slow you down, basically fracturing your bones. However, this attack can only be used once every 3 turns. I ended up naming this creature Sweet Potato Keeper. So this is how it turned out. It's my last favorite and my friends agrees, but that doesn't mean I dislike it. I'm actually quite happy with it because it's very different from the potato, which was my main goal. This boss is highly situational, which I really like. It's weak against barbarians and fighter, but very strong against sorcerers and mages, especially those who rely on lightning spells. And for the grand final, I saved the best for last, the one that's my personal favorite. Honestly, I love both its design and its mechanics. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I don't know why, but from the very beginning I was certain I wanted to turn the durian into an animal, a creature, even better, a beast, which I wasn't sure what kind of beast, so I started writing that it was a creature living in a forest dense with durian trees, and since it relied entirely on them for food, it had adapted to match its surroundings. With that general idea in mind, I started sketching small concepts in my sketchbook. At first, I imagined a 4-legged creature similar to an ankylosaurus. Then I shifted towards something more like a sloth. In the end, I landed on a mix between those two and a gorilla. With that, I refined its concept even further. In short, I wrote that its armor-like hide resembles the durian spiky shells. It's highly territorial because its young resemble the fruit so much that they must be fiercely protected. And what I love most about this creature is that after consuming so many durians, it has permanently absorbed their horrific stench, so much that if you get too close, you might even puke from the sheer intensity of the smell. And that's not all. Stat-wise, it doesn't disappoint either. It has monstrous strength, solid constitution, and high dexterity. It's not particularly smart, but it's very perceptive. It has a lot of HP and excellent armor, something that's obvious just by looking at it. It's resistant to slashing damage, has dark vision and highly passive perception. Its level is 10, double that of the potato. Now comes the best part, the abilities. Its strongest passive is one that, if you are within 5 feet of it and fail a saving throw, you become vulnerable and have disadvantage on your attacks, because you simply can't withstand the stench of this creature. The next passive is that if it's surrounded by durians, it can heal 10 HP at the end of its turns, so fighting it in its lair is not a good idea. Lastly, if you hit it in melee without a weapon, you take some damage from its spikes. Even if you do use a weapon, but fail the strike, you also take damage. Its active abilities include a double attack, one with its claws and another with its bite. Then there's a move that recharges every 4 turns, a foul burp that deals damage. And if you fail a saving throw, you lose your next action due to the sheer intensity of the stench. With everything finished, I gave it a name, Dania, since it sounded like durian. Here's the result. As I've already mentioned, this one is my favorite. I love it, and if anyone thinks it is too much, just remember, it's twice the level of the potato, so it should be twice as difficult. One thing I really like is that just as the sweet potato golem is strong against wizards but weak against warriors, Dania is the opposite. It absolutely wrecks melee fighters. Its entire kit revolves around close combat, but it's highly vulnerable to wizards and range attackers. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and if there are any mistakes in the stat blocks, I apologize. This is my first time creating monster stats for D&D. Anyway, sending hugs to everyone, and I hope you like it. Bye!